Who are the Nephilim?
The Nephilim are these mysterious creatures mentioned in the Bible. You see them in two references. You see them in Genesis chapter 6 and then again in Numbers 13. In Genesis, it says the Nephilim were on the earth in those days, the days of Noah, and also afterwards. And when the sons of God came into the daughters of man, and they bore children to them. These were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. And then in Numbers 13, it says that these Nephilim were giants, that we were like grasshoppers to them. Both of these accounts are kind of mysterious. We don't get a lot of details. A few things we can take away. First, it seems that they were physically very impressive, right? Numbers 13 saying we're like grasshoppers, like insects compared to these men. Another thing that we can take from them is that the ancient world seemed to treat them like they were giants. The Septuagint translates this word gigantes, a Greek word which literally means giants. So again, that bolsters this claim that these were physical giants, very, very big human specimens, or some sort of a human hybrid, at least based on the Book of Enoch. The Book of Enoch is a non-biblical book, but it was written during biblical times, and it popularized this idea. The Nephilim were some hybrid race, a weird abomination, meaning that the sons of God, mentioned in Genesis 6, were these fallen angels who had slept with human women and then gave birth to this weird hybrid race or species called the Nephilim. That whole idea is popularized by the Book of Enoch.
So are these the people that Joshua had to defeat, like the giants, the Nephilim, like the Amalekites and so on?
That is a theory. And it kind of makes sense. Because if the Nephilim are this weird race or species that was not supposed to exist, and they're outside of the plan of God, then God would have wanted them wiped out because in his view, they would be an abomination to them. And that would explain why some of these tribes that Joshua and the others were commanded to fight against and war against, some of them, they were allowed to take as servants, but others, they were commanded, wipe them out. Don't let any of them exist. And the suggestion is that there's something about them that has to be taken out, that they can't be allowed to exist on the earth. Perhaps it's because they are an abomination, some weird hybrid race of human and fallen angel. Again, we're venturing into, church lore and theory, and we're even, leaning on a book like the Book of Enoch, which is not a biblical book in the sense that it's recognized by Christians as the Word of God. But it does lend some credibility, at least when you put all of these pieces of evidence together, that the Nephilim were some weird kind of race and that God didn't want them on the earth, and that if they still existed around the time of the conquest, then God would have wanted them taken out.
I've heard people say that the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim are these evil spirits that torment us today. Is that the case?
I've heard that theory as well, that there are several species of spiritual entities, that there are angels, there are cherubim and seraphim, but then there are demons. And then what if there's something else, those unclean spirits or those disembodied spirits? I think certainly if one were to sit down and try to categorize all of these spiritual species and spiritual kind of races or beings, you'd probably have to put the Nephilim in some sort of a category, or at least a hybrid category based on Genesis 6, where it talks about that, again, if we're reading the sons of God are the angels and the daughters of men are humans, then was this some sort of a weird hybrid race?
Do you think the Nephilim still exist today?
Wow, that's a good question. I don't think so. It could be. I don't think not in the sense of the men of renown. We might see unusually tall people today, but I don't think we're seeing a race of giants like the Bible seems to indicate.